All right, now in VS Code, I'm going to create a new folder for our models. However, we have a tiny problem here. If we click this icon to create a new folder, look, it adds it under the currently selected folder. So I don't know how to create a folder at the root of the project. Now the workaround that is to open up the terminal. So Control and backtick. So here we create a new folder, models. Okay, here it is. Now when you right click this, with the C# extensions that I told you to install at the beginning of the course, you will get these two items here, new C# class and new C# interface. So let's add a new class, model. Each model needs two properties, ID and name. So prop, just like Visual Studio, integer ID. We could also use a short data type here because we are not going to have too many models. Another property is name. Now one more time, we're going to add another class. This one is going to be make. Our make class is also going to have two properties, ID and name. But here we also want to have a collection of models. So I collection of model, and we call it models. Now we have a red underline here. If you put the cursor on I collection and press Command and period on Mac or Control and period on Windows, you get this context menu here, and then you can add the namespace on top of the file. Beautiful. Now as a best practice, whenever you have a collection property in a class, you should initialize it in the constructor of that class. Because we don't want somewhere else in the code, we create a new make object and then have to type make.models equals new collection of models. We don't want to repeat this code everywhere. Initialization of this property is the responsibility of this class, not anywhere else in the code. Also, this will prevent you from getting a null reference exception, because if you don't initialize it here and forget to initialize it somewhere else in the code, you're going to get a null reference exception. So, constructor for the make class, we don't want any parameters. And here I'm going to initialize models to a new collection. Once again, command and period, and add the namespace. Now, instead of I collection and collection, we could also use iList and the list class. The difference between a list and a collection is that the list gives you the ability to access objects in a collection using an index. But in this case, when we get a make and all its models from the database, it's very unlikely that we want to access a model by its index inside a make object. We just want to serialize it and return it to the client. All right, now I'm going to go back to the model class. We can switch tabs with Control and Tab. Here I'm going to add the inverse property, the other side of the association. So each model is also associated with a make. So prop, make, make. This is our navigation property. I'm also going to add a foreign key property because this will simplify creating and updating objects in the future. So if you want to associate a model with a make, we can simply use its identifier. We don't have to load a make object from the Entity Framework in order to associate it with this model object. So prop, integer, make ID. Now, if you follow this convention, that is the name of the parent class and its property, Entity Framework will know that this make ID and make are referring to the same thing. So when you use code first migrations, it's not going to create an extra column for you. Also, another mistake that I have seen a lot of beginners make is in the type of this foreign key property. So here I'm using an integer because the ID property of my make class is an integer. If I used byte there, I should use byte here. So this is our domain model. And I'm not going to add anything to this model until I finish this piece of functionality. So yes, in our actual domain model, we have other classes like feature, vehicle, and so on. I'm not going to add them here yet because our focus here is on building an API to return makes and models. This is again another mistake that a lot of junior or intermediate level developers make. They start with all these fancy UML diagrams with tens and hundreds of classes and then try to build them all in one go. That's a recipe for failure. So don't do that. All right, we have a simple domain model. Next, we're going to add Entity Framework.